The bat came down, and she didn't move. 5 years old, barefoot, 40 pounds of nothing wrapped around an old biker's chest like a human shield, blood already running from where the first blow caught her shoulder. The men screaming at her to move, the biker beneath her begging her to run. She held up a one-armed doll with shaking hands. "Please take my dolly. She's all I got. Just don't hurt Santa." The bat swung again. She took it, again, she took it. And somewhere in the frozen dark, 500 engines were already waking up, because what those Hell's Angels were about to do for this little girl would be talked about for the rest of their lives. Lily learned to count by listening to footsteps. Heavy boots meant trouble. Quick shoes meant someone late for something. Shuffling steps meant drunk. And drunk meant hide deeper, breathe quieter, become invisible. She was 5 years old, and she had been invisible for 23 days. The truck stop off Highway 61 had become her world. Not the inside, she'd learned fast. That inside meant questions. And questions meant police. And police meant foster homes where bad things happened to small girls. So she stayed outside behind the ice machine where the motor hummed warm against her back, and nobody thought to look. 23 days since Mama stopped breathing on that mattress. 23 days since Lily had walked out the door because she didn't know what else to do. She clutched Button tighter against her chest. The doll had lost an arm somewhere between the old apartment and here, but Lily didn't mind. They matched now, both of them missing pieces, both of them still holding on. "You hungry, Button?" she whispered, her breath making tiny clouds in the February air. The doll didn't answer. Dolls never did. But Lily had gotten good at imagining the responses. "Yes, Lily. Very hungry." "Me too." And she pulled her knees tighter under the thin summer dress that used to be yellow, but was now the color of old newspapers. "But we gotta wait. Remember what happened last time?" Last time she'd gone to the dumpster too early. A cook had spotted her, started yelling, chased her halfway across the parking lot before his bad knee gave out. She'd hidden under a truck for 2 hours, shaking so hard her teeth made sounds. Never again. Now she waited until after midnight when the kitchen closed and the dumpster sat alone. Her feet had stopped hurting 3 days ago. That worried her a little. Mama used to say when things stopped hurting, that's when you really had to watch out. But Lily pushed that thought down deep into the same place where she kept the memory of Mama's face, turning blue. The rumble started low like thunder that forgot to stay in the sky. Lily pressed herself flatter against the ice machine, one eye peeking around the corner. Headlights swept across the parking lot, followed by something that made her heart skip a motorcycle chrome, catching the fluorescent light's engine growling like a living thing. The rider was big. Really big. Lily watched him swing off the bike with a grunt, one hand going to his hip like it hurt him. His beard was white and thick, reaching halfway down his chest, and when he turned toward the truck stop entrance, she saw the patch on his back. She couldn't read all the words, but she knew pictures. This one showed something with wings wrapped around a cross. It looked important. It looked like the kind of thing that meant, "Don't mess with me." But it was his beard that made her stare. White like snow. Long like stories. Exactly like the pictures in the book Mama used to read before the needles took over. Santa, her mind whispered, and she shoved the thought away because she was 5, not stupid. She knew Santa wasn't real. Mama had told her that when she was 4, right before explaining that the tooth fairy was also a lie, and so was everything else good in the world. But still. That beard the old biker disappeared inside, and Lily let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Just a man. Just a big, scary-looking man who probably wasn't scary at all. The scariest people she'd ever met wore suits and smiled too much. She counted to 60, then counted again. Her stomach made a sound like a dying animal. She pressed her hand against it, trying to make it quiet. Shh, she told herself. Soon. That's when the truck pulled in Chasumat. Lily knew trouble sounds. This truck had them all. Engine too loud like it was angry. Brakes squealing like it didn't want to stop, but had to. And then the doors, 3 of them slamming hard enough to shake the air. 3 men climbed out. They were laughing, but not the good kind of laughing. This was the kind that came before breaking things. Lily had heard it through thin apartment walls too many times, the kind that came with bottles and fists and sorries that never meant anything. The biggest one had a baseball bat. He kept tapping it against his leg, tap, 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 like he was keeping time to music only he could hear. I'm telling you, he was saying, voice slurred and too loud. That waitress looked at me like I was trash. You are trash, Dean. The second man laughed, stumbling a little. Shut up, Marcus. The third man didn't say anything. He just followed hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the parking lot like he was looking for something to break. Lily made herself smaller. Invisible. A shadow behind a machine that nobody would ever think to check. Please go inside, she thought. Please go inside and stay there. They didn't go inside. The one called Dean spotted the motorcycle first. His bat stopped tapping. His whole body went still in a way that made Lily's stomach clench. Well, well. He walked toward the Harley, circling it like a shark. Look what we got here. Don't, man. Marcus sounded nervous now. That's a Hell's Angels bike. You see that patch? I see it. Dean's voice dropped lower, meaner. Think I care? Think I'm scared of some old man on a Harley? The third man finally spoke. Maybe we should go. Maybe you should grow a spine, Tommy. Dean ran his fingers over the chrome leaving smudges. My daddy used to say bikers were all talk. Big patches, little. The door to the truck stop opened. Grizzly felt the cold hit his bones the second he stepped outside. 67 years old, bad hip from a crash in '89, and the Tennessee winter didn't care about any of it. He hunched his shoulders coffee cup warm in his hand and started toward his bike. He saw the 3 men immediately. You don't ride 40 years without learning to read a situation. These 3 had trouble written across them in letters a blind man could see. Young drunk, and that particular kind of angry that comes from feeling small and wanting to make someone else feel smaller. The one with the bat was touching his bike. Grizzly's jaw tightened, but he kept walking steady. Nice and easy. No sudden moves. He'd learned a long time ago that most fights started because someone felt challenged. If you gave them nothing to push against, sometimes they let you pass. Evening, he said, voice neutral. The one with the bat, young, maybe 30 mean eyes, turned to face him. This your ride, old man? It is. Nice bike. The kid smiled, but there was nothing nice about it. Real nice. Must have cost a lot. It did. Grizzly moved toward the Harley, keeping his movements slow. You gentlemen have a good night. He shouldn't have walked between them. He knew it even as he did it. But his bike was right there, and his hip was screaming, and 40 years of road respect had taught him that wearing the patch meant something to most people. Most people. Hey. The bat caught him across the chest, not hard enough to hurt, just hard enough to stop. I wasn't done talking. Grizzly looked down at the bat, then up at the young man's face. Son, you don't want to do this. Don't tell me what I want. That patch on my back means something. Means you're an old man playing pretend. Dean stepped closer, and Grizzly could smell the cheap whiskey on his breath. "My town, my rules. You want to ride through here, you pay a toll." "I'm not paying anything." The first shove came from behind. Marcus hit him in the right kidney, and Grizzly's coffee cup went flying hot liquid splashing across the snow and across Dean's boot. "What the—" Dean looked down at the brown stain spreading across the leather. His face went red. "You did that on purpose." "I didn't." The second shove knocked Grizzly sideways. His bad hip screamed. His boot slipped on ice, and the world tilted. He went down hard, and the Harley went with him. Behind the ice machine, Lily forgot how to breathe. She watched the old man fall, watched the motorcycle crash down on top of his leg, watched his face twist in pain as he tried to push the weight off. "Please get up," she whispered. "Please, please get up." But he couldn't. The bike was too heavy, and his leg was trapped, and the man with the bat was stepping closer. "Look at you now." Dean's voice dripped with satisfaction. "Big bad biker can't even stand up. Where's your gang now, old man?" "Let me go." Grizzly's voice was strained but steady. "Walk away and we forget this happened." "Forget?" Dean laughed. "I don't think so. You ruined my boots." He lifted the bat. Lily's whole body started shaking, but not from cold this time. Something else was building in her chest. Something hot and tight and terrible. "Run," her brain screamed. "Hide. This isn't your problem. You're invisible, remember? Invisible girls don't get hurt." But she couldn't stop looking at that white beard. At the way the old man wasn't begging, wasn't crying, just looking up at the bat like he'd already accepted what was coming. Mama used to hit her when the drugs got bad. Used to scream things that made Lily want to disappear. But once, just once, a neighbor had knocked on the door. Mrs. Patterson from 4B, who smelled like cats and wore too much perfume. She'd said, "Everything okay in there?" And Mama had stopped. Just that. Just someone showing up. Someone saying, "I see you." The bat reached its highest point. Lily didn't decide to move. Her body decided for her. She was running before she knew it, bare feet slapping against frozen concrete cold air burning her lungs. The men were so focused on the old biker that they didn't see her coming. She threw herself onto his chest. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't brave. It was just the only thing that made sense in that moment, to be the door someone knocked on, to be the voice that said, "I see you." Her body stretched across his, trying to cover as much of him as possible, which wasn't much because she was 5, and he was enormous, and she weighed less than a bag of groceries. But she was there. She was in the way. "What the—" Dean stumbled back, bat frozen in mid-swing. "Where did you come from?" Lily looked up at him, and something in her face made him pause. Maybe it was the dirt streaked across her cheeks. Maybe it was the bare feet blue with cold. Maybe it was the way she was shaking so hard she looked like she might fly apart. Or maybe it was what she said next. "Please." Her voice came out thin and broken, a sound that didn't belong to a child. She lifted Button with trembling hands, holding the one-armed doll toward the man with the bat. "Take my dolly. She's all I got. Just don't hurt Santa." For 3 heartbeats, nobody moved. Dean stared at the doll, at the little girl, at the old biker she was trying to protect with a body that couldn't protect anything. Behind him, Marcus and Tommy exchanged glances. Something in the air had shifted. The game wasn't funny anymore. This wasn't an old man in leather, this was a child. A homeless, freezing, terrified child. "Santa." Dean's voice cracked somewhere between a laugh and something else. "You think this guy is Santa?" Lily didn't answer. She just kept holding Button up, offering the only thing she had in the world. Grizzly's hand found her back. "Sweetheart, no, run, go." No, she pressed herself closer to him. Won't let them hurt you. Listen to the old man, kid. Dean's voice had changed. Harder now. Angrier. Because something about this little girl was making him feel things he didn't want to feel, and men like Dean Dobson handled feelings by swinging harder. Move. No. I said move. The bat came down. Chapter turn. Dean tried to pull the swing at the last second. Later he would tell himself that. He would say he wasn't trying to hit a kid, that he was just trying to scare her, that it was her fault for not moving. But the bat connected. It caught Lily across the back and shoulder, a glancing blow that sent fire exploding through her small body. She screamed a sound that would haunt every person in that parking lot for the rest of their lives. But she didn't move. She screamed and she cried and she clutched at Grizzly's jacket with fingers that had gone white. But she did not move. You hit her, Tommy was saying, his voice high and strange. Dean, you hit a little kid. You... Shut up! Dean's face had gone pale. He was staring at the bat in his hands like he didn't recognize it. She shouldn't have. I told her to move. Under Lily's trembling body, something in Grizzly snapped. He'd watched a lot of bad things in 67 years. He'd buried brothers, survived crashes, sat with dying men on lonely roadsides. He thought he'd seen the worst people could do. He was wrong. With a roar that came from somewhere deeper than rage, he released his grip on the bike and grabbed the descending bat. Dean's second swing stopped cold, and for a moment the two men were frozen young and old drunk and deadly connected by a piece of wood that had just touched a child. You don't get to do that, Grizzly said, and his voice was quiet in a way that was somehow worse than shouting. You don't get to walk away from that. The crack of the truck stop door made everyone turn. The clerk stood there, phone pressed to his ear, face the color of old snow. Highway 61, the truck stop. Yes, there's a little girl, she's hurt. Please hurry. Sirens, distant but growing. Tommy was already running back to the truck. We gotta go. Dean, we gotta go now. Marcus grabbed Dean's arm, pulling him backward. The bat slipped free, clattering to the ground beside Grizzly's trapped leg. Dean's mouth was opening and closing, but no words came out. He was looking at Lily, at the way she was still curled over the old biker, crying quietly now, her small back shuddering with each breath. Then he ran. Lily heard the truck engine roar, heard tires squeal, heard the sound fade into the distance until it was just the wind and the sirens, and her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Sweetheart. Grizzly's voice was gentle, so gentle. His hand was on her back, the one that wasn't trapped under the bike. Sweetheart, they're gone. You can let go now. Can't. Her voice was muffled against his chest. If I let go, you might disappear. I'm not going anywhere. That's what Mama said. The words hit Grizzly harder than any bat could. He stared down at the tiny girl still covering his heart, and he felt something crack open inside him. Something he'd spent 40 years protecting behind leather and chrome, and a patch that said, "Don't mess with me." Your mama's gone, Lily nodded, face still hidden. How long? 23 days. And you've been out here alone all this time? Another nod. Grizzly closed his eyes. 23 days, a Tennessee winter. A 5-year-old girl with no shoes and a one-armed doll, and nothing else. And she'd thrown herself in front of a bat for a stranger she thought might be Santa. The sirens were getting closer. He could see the red and blue lights painting the sky now. Help was coming. But he knew something they didn't. This little girl had just saved his life. And whether she knew it or not, she'd just changed it too. Listen to me. He waited until she lifted her tear-streaked face. I'm not Santa. My name's Grizzly, and I ride with some people who might look scary but aren't. Not to little girls who are brave enough to take a beating for strangers." Her eyes widened. They were brown and huge and old in a way that no child's eyes should be. "You're not Santa." "No." "But your beard." "Just a beard?" He managed something close to a smile. "A really good one, though, right?" She almost smiled back. Almost. The first police car pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing, tires crunching on snow. Behind it, an ambulance. "Here's what's going to happen," Grizzly said quietly. "Some people are going to come help us. They're going to look at your back and make sure you're okay. And I'm going to be right here the whole time. You understand? You promise." He looked at this tiny, broken, impossibly brave child who had given everything she had to protect someone she didn't know, who had offered her last possession to a monster just to save a stranger. "I promise," he said. "And where I come from, promises mean everything." The paramedics were gentle, but quick. They eased the Harley off Grizzly's leg while he bit down on the sounds that wanted to escape. The pain was secondary now. Everything was secondary to the little girl sitting in the back of the ambulance, a shock blanket wrapped around her shoulders, a paramedic examining the angry red welt across her back. "She took a solid hit," the medic was saying to his partner. "No broken bones, but she's going to hurt for a while. Malnourished, hypothermic, dehydrated. How long did she say she's been out here? 23 days. Jesus. Grizzly limped over to the ambulance, ignoring the officer who was trying to ask him questions. "She okay?" The paramedic looked up. "You family. I'm the reason she got hit." Something passed across the medic's face. "She's stable, but she needs to go to County General. Warm up, get some fluids, have that back looked at properly." "I'm going with her." "Sir, you need medical attention too." "I'm going with her." It wasn't a request. The paramedic recognized authority when he heard it, even when it came from a bleeding man with a Hell's Angels patch on his back. "Fine. Both of you in. We'll sort it out at the hospital." Lily wouldn't let go of his hand. The ambulance rocked gently as they drove, sirens clearing the way through empty pre-dawn streets. She sat on the stretcher blanket, pulled tight. Button clutched against her chest with her free hand. Her other hand was wrapped around Grizzly's thick fingers like a lifeline. "Does it hurt?" she asked quietly. "Does what hurt?" "Your leg, where the motorcycle fell." He looked at his leg stretched out on the bench seat, already swelling beneath his jeans. "A little, but I've had worse." "Me too." The words were so simple, so matter-of-fact, like comparing scraped knees or bee stings. But they weren't talking about scraped knees, and they both knew it. "Your mama," Grizzly said carefully. "What happened to her?" Lily's hand tightened around his. She stopped waking up. "Was she sick?" "She had needles. She said they made her feel better, but they made her sleep a lot. And then—" She trailed off, staring at some middle distance that no child should know existed. Grizzly felt his heart crack a little more. "And then she didn't wake up. I tried to wake her. I shook her and shook her. But she was cold. Really cold." Lily looked down at Button. "So I left. I didn't know what else to do." "Where did you go?" "I walked for a long time. And then I found the truck stop. The machine behind the building is warm, and sometimes people throw away food that's still good. 23 days. Alone. In winter. A 5-year-old child surviving on discarded scraps and the warmth of an ice machine motor." "What about your daddy?" Lily shook her head. "Mama said he was a bad man. Said it was better he didn't know about me." "Any other family, aunts, uncles, grandparents?" Another head shake. "Just me and Mama. And Button." She held up the doll. "Button's been with me since I was a baby. She used to have 2 arms, but she lost one when we moved. Mama said we couldn't go back for it." Grizzly looked at the one-armed doll, at the little girl holding it, like the most precious thing in the world. Because to her it was. "She's a good doll," he said. "She's my best friend." Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sometimes she's my only friend." The ambulance slowed, then stopped. Outside hospital sounds replaced siren sounds, wheels on concrete doors opening voices calling medical codes and room numbers. "We're here," the paramedic said, opening the back doors. Lily's grip on Grizzly's hand tightened even more. "Don't leave me." "I'm not leaving. Promise." He looked into those old, young eyes and saw something that made his chest ache. Not just fear, trust. Despite everything this world had done to her, this little girl was choosing to trust him. "Promise," he said. "We're going to figure this out together." The hospital smelled like every hospital Grizzly had ever been in. Antiseptic and old coffee, and that particular kind of tired that soaked into the walls. They put him in a room next to Lily's. A nurse came to check his leg, muttering about x-rays and possible fractures, and definitely keeping weight off it for a while. He barely listened. Through the thin wall he could hear voices, doctors asking questions, a social worker arriving voice too bright, too professional. "And where is your mommy, sweetheart? She stopped waking up." "I see. And where do you live?" Silence. "Lily, sweetheart, where is your home?" "I don't have one." Grizzly closed his eyes. 40 years on the road had shown him a lot of broken things. People, places, promises. But something about this little girl's voice, so flat, so accepting of her own aloneness, cut deeper than all of it. The door to his room opened. A nurse with tired eyes and kind hands. "Mr. She checked her chart. "Grizzly. Just Grizzly." "Right. We need to get you to radiology. I'm not leaving until I know what's happening with the little girl." "Sir, I'm not leaving." The nurse studied him for a long moment. The leather vest draped over the chair, the tattoos covering his arms, the white beard that belonged on a Christmas card. "She saved you," the nurse said quietly. "We've all seen the video. The trucker who was at the gas station, he posted it online about an hour ago. It's everywhere." Grizzly went still. "Video?" "He filmed the whole thing. The way she threw herself over you, the way she offered that doll, the way she—" The nurse's voice caught. "The way she took that hit and didn't move." "Show me." The nurse hesitated, then pulled out her phone. A few taps, and there it was. The truck stop lit by headlights and fluorescent lights. 3 men and a Harley and an old biker on the ground. And then movement, a tiny streak in the darkness, bare feet, and a yellow dress flying toward danger instead of away from it. The video's audio was surprisingly clear. He heard his own voice telling her to run. Heard her say, "No." Heard those words, "Please take my dolly. She's all I got. Just don't hurt Santa." And watched the bat come down. The comments section was already flooded. Thousands of them pouring in by the second. Who is this angel? Find these monsters. Someone help that baby. Where is she? We need to help her. It's going viral, the nurse said softly. 500,000 views in the last hour. Grizzly stared at the screen, at the frozen image of a 5-year-old girl choosing to stand between violence and a stranger. Then he reached for his phone. It was time to make a call. The number he dialed hadn't changed in 20 years. Viper answered on the second ring, background noise suggesting a late dinner with the club. Grizzly thought you were on the road. Everything okay? No. Grizzly's voice was steady, but something in it made the noise on the other end go quiet. I need you to listen to me, brother. I need you to really listen. I'm listening. I'm at County General. Had a run-in at a truck stop on 61. 3 locals baseball bat thought they'd have some fun with an old man on a Harley. You hurt? Legs banged up, but that's not why I'm calling. Grizzly paused, watching through the window as a social worker walked past, Lily's room clipboard in hand. There's a little girl here, Viper. 5 years old. No home, no family, been living behind an ice machine for 3 weeks. She saw what was happening, saw that bat coming for my head, and she... His voice cracked. First time in years. She what? Viper's tone had changed. The club president voice. The voice that meant everything else stopped. She ran at them, threw herself over me like a human shield, tried to give them her doll so they'd leave me alone. Called me Santa because of the beard. Grizzly drew a shaky breath. She took a hit meant for me. She's 5 years old and she took a beating to protect a stranger. The silence on the other end was absolute. Then Viper said, "Where are the men who did this?" Ran, got away before the cops arrived. They won't stay away for long. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. What do you need? I need you to see something first. Grizzly forwarded the video link. Trucker caught the whole thing. Watch it. Then tell me what we do. He waited, phone pressed to his ear, listening to the faint sounds of Viper's breathing as the video played. 3 minutes later, the silence broke. I'm calling everyone. Viper's voice had gone low and cold, the kind of cold that started fights and ended them. Every chapter in driving distance, every brother who ever wore the patch. I want 500 bikes at that truck stop by sunrise. Viper, you said she thought you were Santa, that she's got no one, that she took a bat for you. Yeah. Then she's one of ours now, and we're going to show her what that means. Grizzly closed his eyes. The ache in his leg had faded to background noise. Everything had faded except the sound of engines, not real ones, not yet, but the ones he could already imagine rumbling toward them through the cold. There's something else, he said. Social Services is here. They're talking about finding her a bed in the system. Group homes, foster care, all of it. Not happening. Viper, I said it's not happening. The sound of movement of doors opening, of Viper's voice going distant as he covered the phone to bark orders. Crow, get in here. I need you on the road in 20 minutes. County General. There's a little girl who needs someone who won't let the system swallow her. Grizzly heard Crow's response. Sharp, questioning, then determined. Brother. Viper was back, full attention. You stay with that kid. Don't let her out of your sight. Whatever it takes. I wasn't planning on leaving. Good, because by morning she's going to have more family than she knows what to do with. The call ended. Grizzly set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. 500 motorcycles. Every brother in range. For a little girl with no shoes and a one-armed doll. He thought about the words she'd whispered in the ambulance. I don't have a home. You do now, sweetheart, he said to the empty room. You just don't know it yet. Lily couldn't sleep. She should have been exhausted. The doctors had given her something warm to drink, something sweet, that made her stomach feel less hollow. They'd bandaged the mark on her back and given her a gown that was too big and socks that were soft and warm. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw the bat, saw it rising and falling, felt it connect with her body in that flash of fire and sound. So she stayed awake, watching the door, waiting for someone to come through it and tell her what happened next. Button lay beside her on the thin hospital pillow. Lily had asked the nurse 3 times if she could keep the doll with her, as if expecting someone to take it away. The 3rd time, the nurse had knelt down and said, "Sweetheart, nobody's taking your doll. I promise." More promises. Lily didn't trust promises. Promises were things adults said to make children behave. They weren't real. But the old man Grizzly, he'd made a promise too. He'd promised not to leave. Was he still here? The fear crept up suddenly, wrapping around her chest. What if he'd left? What if he'd realized she wasn't worth the trouble? Wasn't worth the bat and the blood and the ambulance? What if she was alone again? She slipped out of the bed, bare feet hitting the cold floor. The socks were too big and kept sliding off, so she left them behind. The hallway outside was bright and empty. That particular kind of hospital empty that meant most people were sleeping or dying. His room was 2 doors down. She knew because she'd watched them take him there, watched through the window in her door until they closed the curtain. The door was half open. She pushed it the rest of the way and saw him immediately. He was sitting up in the bed leg, wrapped in something white and stiff, phone in his hand. When he heard the door, he looked up, and the fierce concentration on his face melted into something softer. "Hey there, little one. You're still here? I told you I wasn't going anywhere." Lily stood in the doorway, clutching Button so tight her fingers ached. "The lady said I might have to go somewhere in the morning. A place with other kids who don't have moms or dads." Grizzly's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed gentle. "That's what she said. She said it might be nice, that I might make friends." Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't want to go. Bad things happen in those places. Mama told me. She said she grew up in one. She said that's where she learned about the needles." The words hung in the air, heavy and awful and true. Grizzly set his phone down and held out his hand. "Come here." Lily hesitated. "It's okay. Come here." She crossed the distance on feet that still felt too cold, climbing carefully onto the edge of his bed. His arm wrapped around her, big and warm, and smelling like leather and something else, coffee maybe, and roads, and the kind of safety she'd forgotten existed. "Listen to me," he said. "What that lady said, that's not going to happen." "How do you know?" "Because I made some calls. Because right now as we speak, there are a lot of people getting ready to do something very, very big. For you." Lily looked up at him, eyes wide. "What kind of something?" Grizzly smiled, then the first real smile she'd seen on his face. It transformed him, made the scary tattoos and the leather and the white beard look like they belonged on someone who gave presents instead of took them. "You ever seen 500 motorcycles in one place?" Lily shook her head. "Neither have I really. Not like this." His arm tightened around her. "But by morning that truck stop is going to be full of them. And every single one of those riders is coming because of you. Because you were brave enough to stand up for a stranger. Because you reminded a whole lot of tough people what they're supposed to be fighting for." Lily tried to understand, but the numbers were too big, the concept too strange. 500 motorcycles. For her, why? She asked, finally. Grizzly looked down at her, and something in his eyes shifted. Something that had been locked away for a long time, behind decades of roads and losses, and the careful distance men like him learned to keep. Because, Lily, in this world, there are 2 kinds of people. People who walk past when they see someone hurting, and people who stop, who step in, who take the hit if they have to, just to keep something good from getting broken. He touched her hair gently, pushing a tangled strand from her face. "You're the second kind. And so are we." The engine started rumbling through Lily's dreams just before dawn. Not real ones, not yet, but the promise of them gathering in the dark, ready to shake the world awake. The first engine woke Lily just before dawn. She didn't know what time it was, only that the light coming through the hospital window had changed from black to gray, and somewhere outside something was rumbling. Not like a truck, not like the ambulance that had brought her here. This was different, deeper, like the building itself was humming. She was still curled against Grizzly's side, his big arm wrapped around her button pressed between them. He was awake too, she could tell by the way his breathing had changed, by the tension in his muscles. "What's that sound?" she whispered. "That," Grizzly said, and she could hear the smile in his voice, even though she couldn't see his face, "is the beginning of something you're never going to forget." The door opened before she could ask what he meant. A woman stood in the doorway. Tall, lean, with dark hair pulled back under a knit cap and a leather vest over a flannel shirt. Tattoos curled down both her arms, disappearing under her sleeves, and on her bicep, Lily could see a skull inked deep into the skin. She should have been scary. Everything about her said dangerous, but her eyes were soft when they landed on Lily. "You must be the little warrior," the woman said. Her voice was low and warm, like honey poured over gravel. "I'm Crow. Heard you had quite a night." Lily pressed closer to Grizzly. "Who is she?" "She's family," Grizzly said. "Same patch, same promise. You can trust her like you trust me." "That true?" Lily asked Crow directly. Crow didn't laugh at the question, didn't dismiss it with an adult smile. She crossed the room and crouched down so she was at Lily's eye level the way no grown-up had ever done before. "I drove 3 hours through a snowstorm to get here," Crow said. "Left my warm bed, my dog, and a cup of coffee that was just the right temperature. You know why?" Lily shook her head. "Because a little girl with no shoes stood between a bat and my brother. Because she offered everything she had in the world to save someone she didn't know." Crow's voice dropped lower. "In my book that makes you worth 100 snowstorms." Something in Lily's chest loosened. Just a little. "I have shoes now," she said quietly. "The hospital gave me socks." "Yeah, what color?" "Blue, but they're too big. They keep falling off." Crow nodded seriously. "We'll fix that. We'll fix a lot of things." She looked up at Grizzly. "How's the leg?" "Still attached." "Good enough." Crow stood. "Viper's got the convoy assembling at the truck stop. First wave's already there, maybe 60 bikes so far. More coming every hour." "How many total?" Crow's expression shifted into something that looked almost like awe. "Last count, they're expecting close to 500. Word spread fast, brother. The video." She shook her head. "Everyone's seen it. Everyone." Grizzly closed his eyes. 500. "For her." Crow nodded toward Lily. "For what she did." Lily didn't understand the numbers. 500 was just a word too big to fit in her head. But she understood the way the grown-ups were looking at each other, the weight in their voices. Something important was happening. Because of her. The door opened again, and this time Lily's stomach dropped. The social worker from last night walked in, clipboard in hand, that too bright smile firmly in place. Behind her stood a hospital administrator and 2 people Lily didn't recognize, a man and woman in plain clothes, who had the look of people who made decisions about children's lives. "Good morning." The social worker's voice was cheerful in a way that felt wrong. "Lily, sweetheart, I've got some wonderful news. We found you a spot at Harmony House. It's a lovely place with lots of other children your age." "No." The word came from Grizzly, flat and hard. The social worker's smile flickered. "I'm sorry. She's not going to a group home." Grizzly sat up straighter, And despite the bandaged leg, despite the hospital gown, something in his posture made the room feel smaller. "Not today, not ever." "Sir, I understand you've formed an attachment, but this child is a ward of the state. She has no legal guardians, no family. She has family." Crow stepped forward, positioning herself between the social worker and the bed. "She has us." "Ma'am, with all due respect, you're not. I'm a licensed foster parent in the state of Tennessee." Crow's voice was steady, each word landing like a stone. "Have been for 6 years. Background checked, home inspected, certified in trauma-informed care. You want to run my file, go ahead. Patricia Crow, 1847 Ridgeview Road." The social worker's mouth opened and closed. She looked down at her clipboard, then back up. There are procedures." "Then follow them. File the paperwork. Do whatever you need to do." Crow didn't move. "But while you're doing it, this little girl stays with us. She's not spending one more night feeling like she doesn't belong to anyone." Lily watched this exchange without breathing. She'd seen adults argue about her before, in hospital hallways, in police stations, in apartments where the yelling never seemed to stop. But she'd never seen anyone argue for her. Not like this. "The courts will have to approve," the social worker started. "Then get them to approve." Grizzly's voice cut through. "But understand something. By the end of today, every news station in this state is going to know Lily's story. They're going to know about the bat, about the men who swung at about a 5-year-old who took a beating to save a stranger. You really want to be the person who sent her to a group home after that?" The silence stretched. The social worker looked at the administrator, who looked at the other 2 strangers, who suddenly seemed very interested in the floor. "We'll need to make some calls," the administrator said finally. "Make them." Crow didn't blink. "We'll wait." They filed out the door, closing behind them with a soft click. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Lily said in a voice so small it barely counted as sound, "You want me?" Crow turned. The toughness in her face melted away, leaving something raw underneath. "Oh, sweetheart, of course we want you." "Why?" "Because you're worth wanting." Crow crossed back to the bed and sat on the edge close enough to touch, but not touching, letting Lily choose. And because people who are brave enough to protect others deserve someone who will protect them right back. Lily thought about this, about the 23 days behind the ice machine, about all the people who had walked past her without seeing, without stopping, without caring. "Button 2, she asked, holding up the doll. "Button 2. Crow smiled. "She can have her own bed if she wants. She likes to sleep next to me." "Except "Then she sleeps next to you." Lily looked at Grizzly, who nodded. Then back at Crow. Something inside her, something that had been clenched tight for 23 days, maybe longer, maybe her whole life, started to loosen. "Okay," she said. One word. But it meant everything. The rumbling outside was getting louder. Crow helped Lily get dressed in clothes someone had brought, warm things, real winter things that actually fit. A sweater with a puppy on it, jeans that didn't have holes, boots, actual boots lined with something soft that made Lily wiggle her toes just to feel them. "There's something happening outside," Lily said as Crow zipped her coat. "I keep hearing noises." "That's your welcome party." "My what?" Crow looked at Grizzly, something passing between them. "You ready to see something amazing, little one?" Grizzly asked. He was in a wheelchair now, leg propped up. But he was dressed too, his leather vest back on the Hell's Angels patch, catching the light. Lily nodded, not sure what she was agreeing to. They made their way through hospital corridors that had suddenly become busy. Nurses clustered at windows. Doctors paused mid-conversation to stare at their phones. Everywhere Lily looked, people were watching something, whispering about something. A young nurse spotted Lily and gasped. "Oh my God, that's her! That's the little girl from the video!" "What video?" Lily asked Crow. "Someone recorded what happened last night, at the truck stop. They saw me get hit. They saw you be braver than most grown-ups ever manage." Crow squeezed her hand. "The whole world saw." They reached the hospital's front entrance, and Crow paused at the automatic doors. "Close your eyes," she said. "Why?" "Because some things should hit you all at once." Lily closed her eyes, clutching Button tight. She heard the doors slide open, felt cold air rush over her face, heard sounds. So many sounds. Engines, yes, but also voices. Hundreds of them, maybe more. "Okay," Crow said softly. "Look." Lily opened her eyes. The parking lot was gone. In its place was an ocean of chrome and leather motorcycles packed so tight you couldn't see the ground between them. Men and women everywhere, all in black vests with the same patch on their backs. Tattoos and beards and hard faces turned toward the hospital entrance, toward her. Lily stopped breathing. 512, Crow said. "Last count. They're all here for you, sweetheart. Every single one." A path cleared through the crowd, bodies shifting to create a corridor leading from the hospital doors to Lily couldn't see where. Just more bikes, more leather, more people watching her with expressions she couldn't read. Then someone started clapping. Just one person at first, slow and steady. Then another. Then more. The applause built like thunder rising from the crowd, bouncing off the hospital walls, until Lily had to cover her ears. "They're clapping," she said, tears starting down her cheeks. "Why are they clapping?" "Because they're proud of you," Grizzly said from his wheelchair. "Because what you did matters." At the end of the corridor, a man stood waiting. Bigger than Grizzly, if that was possible. Dark hair shot with silver beard, trimmed close arms crossed over his chest. His vest bore extra patches, extra symbols, the marks of someone who led. Lily walked toward him, legs shaking Crow's hand warm on her shoulder. The clapping faded as she approached, replaced by a silence that felt almost holy. The man dropped to one knee. It was so unexpected that Lily almost stepped back. This huge, scary-looking person getting down to her level the same way Crow had done. "You're Lily," he said, not a question. "Yes, sir." "I'm Viper." He didn't smile, but his eyes weren't cold. They were serious, focused, the kind of eyes that saw things other people missed. "I lead these folks. Every single one of them rode through the night to be here. Some came from 3 states away. You know why?" Lily shook her head. "Because one of ours almost got his head caved in last night. And the only thing that stopped it was a little girl with a one-armed doll and more guts than most people ever find in a lifetime." He reached behind him, and someone placed something in his hands. When he held it up, Lily's breath caught. A vest. Just like theirs, but smaller, made for a child. "We got rules about who wears what," Viper said. "Grown folks like us, we earn our patches on the road. Takes years. Takes sacrifice." He turned the vest so she could see the back. The same winged design as the others, but with a banner underneath that read, "Angel's Family." "You earned this before you even knew our name," he said. "You earned it with blood and bone and a heart that wouldn't quit." He held the vest toward her. Lily looked at it, then at him, then at the crowd of 500 people watching. I can have it. It's already yours. Has been since the moment you threw yourself over Grizzly. This just makes it official." Slowly, Lily reached out and took the vest. The leather was heavy in her hands, heavier than anything she'd ever held that wasn't a whole other person. She looked at Crow, who nodded, then helped her slide it on over her coat. It fit perfectly. "Listen to me, Lily." Viper's voice dropped lower just for her. "This patch means something. It means that when the cold comes, we will find a way to keep you warm. It means when bullies think they can swing bats at people like you, they'll have to go through all of us first. It means you're not alone anymore." The words hit her chest like a fist. Not painful, the opposite of painful. Like someone had reached inside and filled up a space that had been empty her whole life. "Never, never again." She looked down at the vest, at the patch, at buttons still clutched in her arms. Then she looked back at Viper. "What about the bad men?" she asked quietly. "The ones with the bat?" Viper's expression changed. The gentleness dropped away, replaced by something colder, harder. "That's the other reason we're here." He stood rising to his full height. "Those men thought they could hurt an old biker and a little girl and drive away like it was nothing. We're about to show them how wrong they were. We got a location." Someone pushed through the crowd, a younger biker with a phone in his hand. "Dobson brothers. They're at McCready's bar, been there since this morning. Too drunk or too stupid to run." "Sheriff knows," Viper asked. "On his way. He's been watching the video on loop all night. Said he wants to be there when we arrive." Viper looked at Crow, then at Grizzly, then back at Lily. "You don't have to come," he said. "You can stay here where it's safe. No one would blame you." Lily thought about the bat, about the way it had felt when it connected with her back, about the men's laughter and the way they'd looked at Grizzly like he was nothing. "I want to see," she said. "You sure they hurt me?" Her voice was small but steady. "I want to see them know they didn't win." Viper stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Someone get this kid a seat in Crow's truck," he called out. "She rides with us." The convoy took 20 minutes to organize. Lily sat in the front seat of Crow's pickup button on her lap, watching through the windshield as the sea of motorcycles arranged itself into formation. 2 by 2, then 4 by 4, a long snake of chrome and leather that stretched back farther than she could see. "How far away is the place?" she asked. 15 minutes, maybe less. Crow checked her mirrors. "You scared?" "A little." "That's okay. Brave people get scared too. That's what makes it brave." The rumble started low and built higher, hundreds of engines finding their rhythm. Lily felt it in her bones, in her teeth, in the part of her chest where her heart was pounding. Then Viper raised his hand at the front of the line, and 500 motorcycles began to move. They rolled through town like a river of black and chrome. Cars pulled to the side of the road to let them pass. People came out of houses to stare. Someone held up a phone filming. Someone else placed a hand over their heart. Lily watched it all through the window, unable to speak, unable to believe that any of this was real. "They're looking at us," she whispered. "They're looking at you," Crow said, "whether they know it yet or not." The bar appeared around a curve in the road, a low, flat building with a gravel parking lot and a neon sign that had seen better days. 3 trucks sat outside. One of them Lily recognized. Her whole body went rigid. "That's their truck," she said. I know." Crow's hand found hers. "They're still inside, and they're not going anywhere." The convoy poured into the parking lot like a flood, bikes filling every inch of space engines idling in a constant growl. Lily watched as Viper and a group of senior members dismounted and walked toward the entrance, their boots crunching on gravel. Behind them, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. "Sheriff Morrison," Crow said. "Good man. Served 2 tours in Iraq before he got into law enforcement. He's been wanting to have a conversation with the Dobson brothers for years." "About what?" "About all the things they've done that nobody could ever prove. Until now." Crow nodded toward Lily's vest. "Until you." The bar's door opened and 3 men stumbled out into the light. Lily recognized them instantly. The one with the bat. Dean looked smaller, somehow reduced by daylight, and the weight of 500 stairs. The other 2 flanked him, faces, pale eyes darting between the bikers like trapped animals. Dean's gaze swept the crowd and landed on Grizzly, who had been helped out of the truck and stood leaning on a cane-white beard catching the winter sun. Then Dean saw Lily. The color drained from his face. "That's her," he said, voice cracking. "That's the kid who saved the man you tried to murder." Viper stepped forward, and Dean stumbled back. "Yeah, we know." Sheriff Morrison moved to the front hand, resting on his belt. "Dean Dobson, Marcus Dobson, Tommy Reeves. You're under arrest for assault on a minor child endangerment and leaving the scene of a crime." "We didn't," Marcus started. "There's video." The sheriff's voice was flat. "The whole world's seen it. 3 million views and counting. You want to tell me again how you didn't do anything?" Dean's eyes were still on Lily. Something ugly twisted in his expression, the last gasps of a man who'd spent his whole life hurting people and never facing consequences. "She got in the way," he spat. "It was her fault. She ran out of nowhere, tried to protect some old... Stop talking." Viper's voice cut through like a blade. "Right now, before you make this worse for yourself. Or what, you're going to beat me up in front of a cop?" Viper smiled then, but there was nothing warm in it. "I'm not going to touch you. None of us are." He gestured to the wall of bikers behind him. "We're just here to watch, to make sure the whole town sees what kind of men you really are." He looked at the sheriff. "He's all yours." The cuffs clicked around Dean's wrists, then Marcus's, then Tommy's. They were led toward the cruiser, heads down, feet dragging. But before they reached the car, Viper raised his hand. "Wait," the deputies paused. "Bring them here." Viper jerked his chin toward where Lily stood beside Crow. "There's something they need to do first." The 3 men were walked across the gravel until they stood in front of the pickup truck in front of the little girl they'd tried to ignore last night. "Knees," Sheriff Morrison said. And just like that, the men who had swung the bat sank down until they were at Lily's eye level. Dean's hands were shaking. Up close, he looked old, tired, like something had been hollowed out of him. "Look at her," Viper commanded. "Really look." Dean raised his eyes. So did the others. Lily stared back. Button clutched to her chest, the Angel's family patch bright on her vest. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. "You got something you want to say to this child?" the sheriff asked. Silence. "Say it," Viper said quietly. "Or I'll make sure every news station in the state knows you couldn't even apologize to a 5-year-old. Dean's jaw worked. The words came out like they were being torn from him. I'm sorry." "Louder." "I'm sorry," his voice cracked. "I didn't mean to hit her. You were just what..." Lily's voice cut through, surprising everyone, including herself. "You were just hurting someone who couldn't fight back. You were just being mean because you could." Dean had no answer for that. Lily took a breath, feeling the weight of 500 people watching her, feeling the vest warm on her shoulders, feeling Button's familiar shape against her chest. "You scared me," she said. "You hurt me. You thought nobody would care." She looked at the crowd, at Grizzly, at Crow, at Viper and the sheriff, and all those leather vests with their matching patches. Then she looked back at Dean. "But you were wrong, and you don't get to do that again. Not to me, not to anyone." The words hung in the air, small and enormous at the same time. Then Viper nodded once, and the sheriff pulled the men to their feet and loaded them into the cruiser. The door shut with a solid thump. The engine started, and Lily watched them drive away. It was over. The men who had swung the bat, who had laughed while an old man lay trapped in the snow, who had hit a 5-year-old girl because she got in their way, they were gone. Grizzly limped over to stand beside her. His hand found her shoulder, heavy and warm. "You okay, little one?" Lily thought about the question, about everything that had happened in the last 24 hours, about the bat and the snow and the hospital and the 500 motorcycles that had come for her. "I think so," she said. Then quieter. "I think I'm going to be okay." Grizzly squeezed her shoulder. "Yeah, I think you are too." Around them, engines began to quiet. Bikers started dismounting, talking in low voices, some of them heading toward the bar for coffee and warmth. The tension that had filled the air was draining away, replaced by something else, something that felt almost like peace. But Lily knew it wasn't really over. The men were gone, but there was still so much she didn't understand, so much she was afraid of, so many nights ahead that might bring the nightmares back. She looked up at Crow, who had moved to stand on her other side. "What happens now?" Crow smiled, and for the first time, Lily thought it might be the kind of smile she could trust. "Now," Crow said, "we take you home." The word hit Lily harder than the bat ever had. Home. She turned it over in her mind as the convoy began to disperse, engines peeling away in 2s and 3s riders, heading back to their own lives now that the mission was complete. The word felt foreign, like something from a language she used to speak, but had forgotten. "I don't know what that means," she said quietly. Crow paused, keys already in her hand. What means home?" Lily clutched Button tighter. "Mama used to say home was wherever we were together. But then we kept moving and she kept getting sicker and then—" She trailed off. "I don't think I've ever had one. Not really." Crow crouched down right there in the gravel parking lot, bikers still rumbling past them. "Then let me tell you what it means to me. Home is where someone's waiting when you get back, where there's food in the fridge that's yours, where you can close your eyes and know nothing bad is coming through the door." "That sounds nice." "It's more than nice, sweetheart. It's yours, if you want it." Lily looked at Grizzly, who stood nearby, leaning on his cane. He nodded once. "Button too?" Lily asked. "Button gets her own pillow if she wants one." Lily thought about the ice machine, about the 23 nights of cold and hunger and listening for footsteps that might mean danger, about the way she'd learned to make herself small, invisible, forgettable. "Okay," she said. "I want to try." The drive took almost an hour, but Lily didn't mind. She sat in the front seat of Crow's truck, watching the world slide past fields giving way to forests, giving way to small towns she didn't recognize. Grizzly followed behind in another truck, his leg too banged up for riding. Every few minutes, Lily turned around to make sure he was still there. "He's not going anywhere," Crow said the 4th time. "How do you know?" "Because that man hasn't broken a promise in 40 years. And he promised you." Lily faced forward again, processing this. "Are you married to him?" Crow laughed, a genuine sound that filled the cab. Lord, no. Grizzly's like a brother to me. We've ridden together for 15 years, pulled each other out of more messes than I can count. Then why do you live alone? The question came out before Lily could stop it. She tensed, waiting for anger, for that familiar flash of adult irritation that meant she'd asked something she shouldn't have. But Crow just gripped the steering wheel a little tighter and said, I had a husband once. Good man. He died 8 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry. Me too. Crow glanced at her. After that, I didn't want to be alone in the house anymore, so I got certified as a foster parent. Figured if I couldn't have my own family, I could at least give some kids a safe place for a while. How many kids? You'll be number 7. Lily's eyes widened. What happened to the other 6? Most of them went back to their families once things got better. 2 got adopted by people who could give them forever homes. Crow's voice softened. And one I adopted myself. My niece Harper. She's 19 now, living in Knoxville, going to college. She was like me. She was a lot like you. Showed up on my doorstep at 6 years old, scared of her own shadow, couldn't sleep without the lights on. Crow smiled. Now she wants to be a lawyer. Says she wants to help kids who went through what she went through. Lily turned this over in her mind. A girl like her who'd been scared, who'd been alone, who'd grown up to want to help others. Maybe that could happen to her too. Crow's house appeared around a bend in the road, and Lily pressed her face to the window. It wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. The porch sagged a little on one side, and the Christmas lights strung along the eaves blinked in a pattern that didn't quite match. Motorcycles sat in the yard under canvas covers, and someone had built a tire swing that hung from a big oak tree. But smoke rose from the chimney, and through the window Lily could see movement. Life. Is someone inside? She asked. That's Tank, my dog. He's probably going crazy right now, wondering where I've been. You have a dog. A very large, very clumsy, very lovable dog who's going to want to smell every inch of you the second you walk in. Lily's heart did something strange. She'd never had a dog. Mama had always said they were too much trouble. But she'd dreamed about them, imagined what it would be like to have something warm and alive that wanted to be near her. Does he like kids? He loves kids, especially small ones. He thinks he's a lapdog, which is a problem because he weighs 90 pounds. The truck stopped. Crow turned off the engine. Behind them, Grizzly's ride pulled up the rumble, dying into silence. Ready? Crow asked. Lily nodded, even though she wasn't sure, even though her hands were shaking, and her stomach was doing flips, and part of her wanted to run back to the ice machine, where at least she knew what to expect. But she got out of the truck anyway. The front door burst open before they reached the porch. Tank was everything Crow had promised and more. He was huge, some kind of mix between a retriever and something bigger, with golden fur, and a tongue that seemed twice as long as it should be. He bounded down the steps, skidded on a patch of ice, recovered, and launched himself toward Lily with the enthusiasm of a creature who had been waiting his entire life for exactly this moment. Lily stumbled backward, but before she could fall, Tank was there, pressing against her legs, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. Tank, easy! Crow tried to grab his collar, but the dog wasn't interested in commands. He was interested in Lily. He sat down in front of her, looking up with brown eyes that held nothing but pure, unconditional joy. Hi, Lily whispered. Tank's tail thumped against the ground. He's huge. I know. You okay? Lily looked at the dog, at his goofy grin, and his flopping ears, and the way he was already leaning toward her like he wanted to be petted, more than he wanted anything else in the world. She reached out one small hand and touched his head. The fur was soft, warm, real. Tank closed his eyes in bliss, pressing into her palm. I think Lily said slowly. I think I'm okay. Inside was warm. Lily stood in the doorway for a long moment, just breathing it in. The smell of coffee and something baking, and the kind of clean that meant someone cared about this place. Furniture that didn't match but fit together anyway. A Christmas tree that leaned slightly to the left, covered in ornaments that looked handmade. And pictures. Everywhere pictures. Kids of all ages frozen in moments of happiness. Birthday parties. Graduations. A teenage girl in a cap and gown grinning at the camera with a thumbs up. That's Harper, Crow said, following her gaze. The day she graduated high school. She looks happy. She was. She still is. Crow moved into the kitchen, filling a kettle with water. You hungry? Lily's stomach answered before she could a loud growl that made her cheeks flush. I'll take that as a yes. Crow smiled. Grilled cheese okay? I make them with 3 kinds of cheese. Secret recipe. I like cheese. Then you're going to love this. Grizzly appeared in the doorway, cane thumping against the floor. Tank immediately abandoned Lily to greet him tail-wagging again, as if he'd been gone for years instead of minutes. Getting the royal treatment, I see, Grizzly said, scratching behind Tank's ears. This beast has no loyalty. He's loyal to whoever's new, Crow called from the kitchen. Give him a week, and he'll be sleeping on Lily's bed every night. Lily's chest tightened. I have a bed. The kitchen went quiet. Crow turned around, spatula in hand. Something in her expression shifted, softened into something that looked like it might break if she spoke too fast. Come with me, she said. They walked down a short hallway. Tank followed, nails clicking on the hardwood. Crow stopped at a door with a hand-painted sign that read, Guest, and pushed it open. Lily stepped inside and her breath caught. The room was small, but real. A bed with a patchwork quilt colors, faded from years of washing. A dresser with 3 drawers. A window that looked out over the backyard, where the tire swing moved gently in the wind. On the pillow sat 2 stuffed animals, a worn rabbit missing an ear, and a dog that looked like a smaller version of Tank. Harper left those, Crow said quietly. Said they needed someone new to love. Lily walked to the bed, running her hand over the quilt. Soft, clean. It smelled like detergent and sunshine, the way laundry smelled in commercials for things Mama could never afford. This is mine, this is yours, for as long as you need it. Lily turned to look at Crow, at Grizzly standing in the doorway at Tank, who had somehow squeezed past everyone to claim a spot on the rug. Why are you doing this? The question came out raw, stripped of the politeness she'd learned to use as armor. You don't know me. I'm just some kid who was behind a machine. Why do you care? Crow crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed, patting the space beside her. Lily hesitated, then climbed up, button still clutched to her chest. You want the real answer? Lily nodded. Because I was you once. Not exactly different details, different story, but close enough. I know what it's like to wonder if anyone's ever going to show up. To think that maybe you're just forgettable. Crow reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind Lily's ear. You're not forgettable, sweetheart. What you did at that gas station, that was the bravest thing I've ever heard of. And I've been around a lot of brave people. It didn't feel brave. It felt scary. That's what brave is, doing the scary thing anyway. Lily thought about this. About the bat rising over Grizzly's head. About her body moving before her brain could stop it. I thought he was Santa, she admitted. I know. Crow smiled. Grizzly's going to be hearing about that for the rest of his life. Does that make me stupid? It makes you 5 years old and full of hope. There's nothing stupid about hope, Lily. Hope is what got you through 23 days alone. Hope is what made you believe someone was worth saving. From the doorway, Grizzly cleared his throat. "That cheese isn't going to grill itself." Crow laughed, the sound easy and real. "Coming, old man. Can't handle 3 minutes without supervision." She stood heading for the door, but Lily's voice stopped her. "Crow. Yeah, thank you for—" Lily gestured vaguely, trying to encompass everything: the room, the dog, the vest that still hung heavy on her shoulders. "For wanting me." Crow's eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. "Thank you for letting us." The first night was hard. Lily lay in the dark, surrounded by softness and warmth, and couldn't sleep. The bed was too comfortable. The room was too quiet. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the bat, felt the impact, heard the sound of Dean's voice, saying she got in the way. She threw off the covers and padded down the hall, bare feet, silent on the wood floors. The house was dark, except for a faint glow from the living room. Grizzly sat in a recliner leg, propped up half asleep, with a motorcycle magazine slipping from his fingers. Tank lay at his feet, one eye opening when Lily approached. She stood there for a moment, unsure what to do. "Can't sleep." Grizzly's voice was low, rusty with fatigue. "No." "Bad dreams. Haven't gotten to sleep yet, but I know they're coming." He shifted, making room in the oversized recliner. "Come here." Lily climbed up, carefully mindful of his leg, and curled against his side. His arm wrapped around her, heavy and warm, the leather of his vest creaking softly. "What did you see?" he asked. "When you closed your eyes?" "The bat, every time. It's just—" "There." Grizzly nodded slowly. "I've got my own bats, different shapes, but same idea. Things I can't unsee." "How do you make them stop?" "You don't really, not completely, but they get quieter. They stop coming every night and start coming once a week, then once a month. Then one day you realize you can't remember the last time they showed up." "How long does that take?" "Depends, but having people around helps. Having Tank helps." As if he'd heard his name, the dog raised his head and thumped his tail. "Having someone who knows you're not alone." Lily pressed closer to him. "I thought you were Santa." "So I've heard." "Are you mad? About being compared to a magical person who brings presents to children I think I'll survive?" She almost smiled. "You're nothing like Santa." "Now that hurts." "Santa's fat and jolly. You're—" She searched for the word. "Scary." Grizzly laughed, a low rumble that she felt through his chest. "I'm not scary, little one. I'm just old and ugly." "You're not ugly." High praise from someone who's seen the real thing. Lily's eyes were getting heavy. The warmth, the rhythm of Grizzly's breathing, Tank's quiet snoring, it all wrapped around her like a second blanket. "Will you stay?" she mumbled. "I'm not going anywhere." "Promise? Promise." She slept. The days began to blur into something that felt almost normal. Crow made breakfast every morning. Eggs, pancakes, whatever Lily wanted to try. Tank followed her everywhere, a shadow made of fur and enthusiasm. Grizzly came over daily, teaching her to play cards, telling her stories about roads he'd ridden and places he'd seen. But underneath the routine, things were moving. "Court date's set," Crow said one evening, phone pressed to her ear. 2 weeks from now. The DA says the video makes everything straightforward." Lily sat at the kitchen table, pretending to color, but really listening. "What does that mean?" Crow covered the phone. "It means the bad men are going to get in trouble for what they did. Big trouble." "Will I have to see them?" "Not in the same room, but the judge might want to talk to you. Would that be okay?" Lily thought about Dean's face, about Marcus and Tommy, about the way they'd looked at her when they were on their knees in the parking lot. "I can do it," she said, "if it helps." Crow smiled, something like pride in her eyes. "That's my girl." The social worker came 3 times that first week. Each time she had more paperwork, more questions, more assessments that felt like tests Lily didn't know how to study for. "She's evaluating us," Crow explained after the second visit, "making sure this is a good place for you." "What if she decides it's not?" "She won't. But even if she tried..." Crow's jaw tightened. "We've got a lot of people who'll make sure you stay right where you are. The bikers, the sheriff, half the town after that video." Crow leaned forward. "You've got more people in your corner than you know, Lily. Way more than those men ever expected." The video had become a phenomenon. Lily didn't fully understand it, but she heard the adults talking. 5 million views. Then 10. Then 20. News stations were calling, wanting interviews. Magazines wanted photos. Someone had started a GoFundMe that had raised over $100,000. "For what?" Lily asked when she heard the number. "For you," Grizzly said. "For your future. College if you want it. A car when you're old enough. Whatever you need." "I just need this." She gestured around the kitchen at Crow washing dishes at Tank, snoring under the table. "Can I trade the money for more of this?" Grizzly's eyes went soft. "You don't have to trade anything. You get both." The nightmares came, but they didn't stay. Lily woke up screaming 3 nights out of the first 7. Each time Tank was there within seconds, pressing his warm body against hers, licking her face until she remembered where she was. Each time either Crow or Grizzly appeared in the doorway, patient and calm, sitting with her, until the shaking stopped. "Same one?" Crow asked on the 4th night. Lily nodded, throat still tight. "The bat. It keeps falling." "Does it hit you?" "Sometimes. Sometimes it hits Grizzly. Sometimes it just keeps falling, forever, never landing." Crow climbed onto the bed, pulling Lily close. "You know what my therapist told me once? She said nightmares are the brain's way of processing things it couldn't handle during the day. Your mind is trying to work through what happened. It's not punishment. It's healing." "Healing hurts." "Yeah." Crow kissed the top of her head. "Sometimes it does." The day before the court date, Lily asked to go back to the truck stop. Crow hesitated. Grizzly went still. Even Tank seemed to sense the weight of the request, his head lifting from his paws. "You sure?" Crow asked. "I need to see it. I need to know it's just a place, not a monster." Grizzly pushed himself up from the couch, reaching for his cane. "Then let's go." They drove in silence, the familiar road unspooling before them. Lily watched through the window, remembering how different everything had looked when she was running on bare feet and hunger trying to find somewhere to disappear. The truck stop appeared around a curve. It looked smaller somehow, less threatening, just a building with pumps and a sign that flickered slightly in the afternoon light. But when they pulled in, Lily saw something that made her breath catch. Workers. A dozen of them in hard hats and reflective vests gathered around the ice machine where she used to sleep. "What are they doing?" she asked. Crow smiled. "Let's find out." They got out of the truck, and a man in a suit approached the owner of the truck stop, Lily would learn later, a man who'd seen the video and couldn't stop crying. "You must be Lily," he said, voice thick. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were out here. If I'd known..." "It's okay," Lily said, because she'd learned that adults needed forgiveness sometimes, even when they hadn't done anything wrong. "What are they building?" The man's face transformed. He knelt down, pointing toward the workers. "We're building something for you, for the next Lily. A warming station right there where you used to hide. Heated safe with a phone that connects directly to help. And next to it..." He trailed off, emotion overwhelming him. Grizzly finished for him. "A plaque. They're putting up a plaque." "A what?" "A metal sign, with your name on it, so people remember what happened here." Lily stared at the workers at the place where she'd shivered and starved and learned to be invisible. My name, your name. The owner wiped his eyes. So no one ever forgets that courage can come in the smallest packages. The court date arrived cold and gray. Lily wore her nicest clothes, a dress Crow had bought her blue with white flowers, and clutched buttons so tight the doll's remaining arm seemed to strain at the seams. She didn't have to sit in the same room as the Dobson brothers. The judge spoke to her in a small office, his voice gentle, his questions careful. Can you tell me what happened that night, Lily? And she did. All of it. The cold, the hiding, the men's voices, the bat rising over Grizzly's head. Why did you run toward them? The judge asked. Most people would run away. Lily thought about it. Really thought. Because he had a Santa beard, she said finally. And I thought if Santa died, nobody would bring presents to the kids who needed them. And I knew what it was like to need things and not get them. The judge was quiet for a long moment. That's a very good answer, Lily. Is it the right one? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but I think it says something important about who you are. What does it say? The judge leaned forward, his old eyes holding something that looked like wonder. It says that even when the world gave you every reason to stop believing, you chose to believe anyway. That's rare, Lily. Rarer than you know. The verdict came down hard. Dean Dobson, 8 years. Marcus Dobson, 6 years. Tommy Reeves, 4 years. Additional charges had been added, prior assaults. They'd never been convicted of witnesses who came forward after seeing the video, a pattern of violence that stretched back almost a decade. They're going away, Crow said when they got the news. For a long time. Lily sat on the porch swing watching Tank chase his tail in the yard. Will they be mad at me when they get out? Maybe. But you know what? By the time they get out, you're going to be a lot bigger, and you're going to have a lot of people who love you. Will Grizzly still be alive? The question came out flat practical, the way a child asks about things that terrify them. Crow sat down beside her, the swing creaking under their combined weight. I don't know. Nobody knows how long they have. But I can tell you this, that old man has more life in him than people half his age. And he's got a very good reason to stick around now. What reason? You dummy. Crow bumped her shoulder gently. You gave him something to fight for. Do you know how powerful that is? Lily thought about the way Grizzly looked at her sometimes. Like she was something precious, something worth protecting. I think so, she said. The foster paperwork went through, then the adoption paperwork started. It takes time, Crow explained. Lots of home visits, lots of background checks, lots of people making sure this is the right decision. But it's happening, Lily. Slowly, but surely, it's happening. And then I'll be yours forever. You're already mine. The paper just makes it official. Lily turned this over in her mind. Official. Forever. Words she'd never thought would apply to her. What about Button? She asked. Button too. And Tank especially. He's already claimed you as his personal human. As if to prove the point, the dog pushed his head onto Lily's lap, demanding scratches with the authority of a creature who knew exactly how important he was. Lily laughed a real laugh, bright and unexpected, and for just a moment everything felt possible. The first anniversary crept up faster than anyone expected. Lily woke that morning feeling strange, a weight in her chest that hadn't been there the day before. It took her a minute to realize what day it was. 1 year? 1 year since the bat. Since the blood. Since 500 motorcycles had shaken the world awake. You okay? Crow asked at breakfast. I don't know. Lily pushed her eggs around her plate. I feel weird. Weird how, like something big is supposed to happen. But I don't know what. Crow and Grizzly exchanged a look. The kind of look that meant they knew something she didn't. Actually, Grizzly said slowly, something big is happening, if you're up for it. What kind of something? The kind that involves going back to the truck stop. One more time. Lily's stomach dropped. Why? Because there's something there you need to see. Something they finished building just for you. Lily looked at Button still sitting beside her plate. At Tank, watching from his spot by the door. At the kitchen that had become her kitchen in the house, that had become her home. She thought about the plaque the owner had mentioned. About her name carved into metal standing guard over the spot where she used to hide. Okay, she said. Let's go. The convoy was smaller this time, maybe 50 bikes instead of 500, but it felt just as powerful. Lily rode in Crow's truck watching the Chrome River flow ahead of them, sunlight catching the patches and turning them into fire. When they arrived, the truck stop looked different. Not just because of the warming station now complete and glowing with soft light. Not just because of the people gathered familiar faces from the past year mixed with new ones she didn't recognize. But because of what stood beside the ice machine. A bronze statue. Small, but perfect. A little girl barely 3 feet tall, arms wrapped around a biker's chest. Protecting him. Shielding him. Frozen in the moment that had changed everything. And below it words carved into a stone base. In honor of Lily, who reminded us that courage can be small, cold, and 5 years old, and still change everything. Angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have one-armed dolls and the heart of a lion. Lily stood before it, unable to speak. Grizzly moved to stand beside her, his cane sinking slightly into the soft earth. His hand found her shoulder heavy and warm. What do you think? He asked. Lily reached out, touching the bronze girl's face, her own face captured forever in metal. I think, she said slowly, I think she looks braver than I felt. That's the thing about bravery. Grizzly's voice was rough. It never feels as big on the inside as it looks from the outside. Viper approached his boots, crunching on the gravel. The club president hadn't changed much in a year, same hard face, same serious eyes, but something in him softened when he looked at Lily. We wanted you to see this, he said. Before everyone else? Because it's yours. This whole thing, the statue, the warming station, all of it. It's because of you. Lily looked at the gathered bikers, at Crow, wiping tears from her eyes at Tank, who had somehow escaped the truck and was now sniffing the statue's base with great interest. I didn't do it alone, she said. No, Viper agreed. But you started it. You threw yourself into the fire when everyone else was running away. That's what leaders do, Lily. That's what heroes do. I'm not a hero. I'm just me. That's the same thing, kid. Viper crouched down, meeting her eyes. Being a hero doesn't mean being something other than yourself. It means being exactly who you are, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Lily thought about this. About the 23 days behind the machine. About the choice she'd made without thinking. About all the choices since then, the small ones, and the big ones, the scary ones, and the easy ones. Can I say something? She asked. Viper stood gesturing to the crowd. They're all here for you. Lily turned to face them. 50 bikers plus Crow and Grizzly and Tank, plus people she recognized from town, from the hospital, from the courthouse. All of them watching her with expressions that looked like pride. She took a deep breath. A year ago, she started, voice small but steady. I was nobody. I was hiding behind a machine, hoping nobody would find me, hoping I could stay invisible until I didn't know what. She clutched Button tighter. Then I saw a man fall down, and I saw other men who wanted to hurt him, and I thought if I didn't do something, nobody would. She looked at Grizzly, at his white beard, and his gentle eyes, and the cane he still needed when his leg ached. I didn't know he wasn't Santa. I didn't know about the patches, or the motorcycles, or any of it. I just knew that someone needed help, and I was the only one close enough to try. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I was wrong about a lot of things. He's not Santa. Leather vests aren't just for scary people. And families don't have to share blood to be real. She paused, looking at the crowd. But I was right about one thing. When someone needs help, you don't walk away. You don't hide. You step up even if it hurts. Even if you're scared. She touched the statue one more time. I'm still scared sometimes, but I'm not alone anymore, and that makes all the difference. The applause started slowly building, like thunder rolling across the parking lot until it seemed to shake the sky itself. And Lily, standing before the bronze girl who was her and wasn't her, finally let herself believe that she was home. The applause faded, but the warmth in Lily's chest stayed. She stood by the statue for what felt like hours, watching people come and go, listening to their stories. A woman who'd driven 400 miles just to shake her hand. A man who said his daughter had started volunteering at a homeless shelter because of the video. A teenager who'd gotten a tattoo of a one-armed doll on his wrist. Why? Lily asked him. Because you reminded me that small things can matter, he said. I was going through some dark stuff when that video came out. I thought nothing I did would ever make a difference. Then I saw you, this tiny kid who barely came up to my hip, change everything by refusing to walk away. Lily didn't know what to say to that. She was still learning that her story had traveled further than she understood, touched people she would never meet, started ripples she would never see the end of. Time to go, sweetheart, Crow said, appearing at her elbow. You've got school tomorrow. School? The word still felt strange. Lily had started 3rd grade 3 months ago, her first time in a real classroom. The other kids stared. At first, they'd all seen the video, heard the stories, but slowly, she'd faded from celebrity to just another kid. A kid who was quiet, who liked to read, who still flinched sometimes when someone moved too fast. She said goodbye to the statue, touching its bronze face one last time. See you next year, she whispered. The ride home was quiet. Tank had claimed the entire back seat, his massive body sprawled across the leather. Grizzly followed in his own truck the way he always did now, a permanent fixture in their strange little family. You did good today, Crow said. I didn't do anything. I just stood there. You stood there and you spoke. That's not nothing, Lily. That's everything. Lily watched the trees blur past. Do you think Mama would be proud of me? The question came out of nowhere, surprising even her. Crow's hands tightened on the wheel. I think your Mama had a lot of problems. Problems that had nothing to do with you. But yes, sweetheart, I think if she could see you now, she'd be proud. How could she not be? Sometimes I can't remember her face. That's normal. Is it bad that I'm forgetting? No. Crow's voice was gentle but firm. Forgetting isn't the same as not loving. Your brain is making room for new things, new memories. That doesn't erase the old ones. It just puts them somewhere safe. Lily thought about this. About the way Mama's voice was getting harder to hear in her head. About the apartment that felt like a dream, now fuzzy around the edges. I still have Button, she said. You always will. 2 weeks later, the phone call came. Lily was at school when it happened, sitting in Mrs. Patterson's class, learning about fractions. She didn't find out until Crow picked her up, and even then she knew something was different by the way Crow was smiling, that barely contained joy smile that meant news, big news. "What happened?" Lily asked, climbing into the truck. "We got a call from the court." Lily's stomach dropped. "About the bad men?" "No, sweetheart. About us." Crow's voice cracked. "The adoption, it's been approved. Officially, completely, permanently approved." For a moment, Lily couldn't process the words. "Approved? You're my daughter, Lily. Legally. Forever. No one can take you away. No one can send you back. You're mine and I'm yours, and that's it. That's the end of the story." The tears came before Lily could stop them. She'd learned not to cry in front of adults. Crying meant weakness, and weakness meant danger. But these tears were different. These tears felt like relief, like something that had been wound tight for years, finally letting go. "Forever," she whispered. "Forever." Crow pulled the truck over right there on the side of the road and wrapped her arms around Lily so tight it almost hurt. "I love you," Crow said into her hair. "I've loved you since the moment I saw you in that hospital bed holding that one-armed doll, looking at the world like it was trying to kill you. I've loved you through the nightmares and the court dates and the days when you couldn't believe anyone would want you, and I'm going to love you for the rest of my life." Lily couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only hold on and let the words sink in. Loved. Wanted. Forever. Words she'd stopped believing in a long time ago. Words that were true again. The celebration happened that weekend. Grizzly organized it, which meant it was equal parts biker rally and family reunion. 50 motorcycles lined up in Crow's yard. Smoke from the grill rose into the autumn air. Tank ran between legs, stealing scraps from anyone too slow to stop him. Lily wore her vest. The Angel's family patch faded now from a year of wear and moved through the crowd like she belonged there. Because she did. "There's my girl." Viper appeared, a rare smile cracking his weathered face. "How's it feel to be official?" "Weird," Lily admitted. "Good weird, but weird." "You'll get used to it." He crouched down the way he always did when he talked to her. "You know, I've been doing this, leading this club for almost 30 years. Seen a lot of things. Good things, bad things, things that keep me up at night." "Like what?" "Like kids who didn't get saved. Kids who slipped through the cracks because nobody was looking. Because nobody cared enough to look." His eyes darkened for a moment, then cleared. "But then there's you, and that night, and what happened after. The 500 motorcycles. Not just that." Viper shook his head. "You changed us, Lily. The whole club. We'd gotten comfortable, I guess. Settled into our routines. Forgot what the patch was really about." "What is it about? Protection. Not just of our own, but of people who can't protect themselves. People like you were that night. Small. Scared. Alone." He touched the patch on her vest. "You reminded us. And we're not going to forget again." Lily thought about the warming station at the truck stop. About the donations that had come in enough to build 3 more at rest stops across the county. About the hotline that had been set up, the shelters that had opened all because a video went viral and people remembered to care. "Does that mean I changed the world?" she asked. Viper laughed. "That's exactly what it means." The party went late into the night. Lily should have been tired. She'd been up since dawn, nerves making sleep impossible. But something about the laughter and the music and the sense of belonging kept her awake. She sat on the porch steps, button in her lap, watching the bikers tell stories around the fire pit. Grizzly was there, white beard glowing orange in the firelight, gesturing wildly as he described some ride from 40 years ago. Crow settled beside her 2 cups of hot chocolate in her hands. "One for you, one for Button." Lily took both, setting Button's cup beside the doll. "She says thank you." "Polite doll." Crow wrapped an arm around her. "You okay? This is a lot of people." "I know, but it's okay." Lily leaned into her warmth. "They're my people now." "Yeah, they are." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the fire dance. Crow, "Yeah, what happens now?" Crow considered the question. "What do you mean?" "I mean, the adoption's done. The bad men are in jail. The statue's built. It feels like the end of something. So what comes next?" Crow smiled, pulling her closer. "Living, that's what comes next. School and homework and fights about bedtime. Birthday parties and skinned knees and learning to ride a bike. All the normal, boring, beautiful stuff that kids are supposed to have." "That doesn't sound boring." "It's not. It's the best part." Crow kissed the top of her head. "The big dramatic stuff, the video, the convoy, the courtroom, that's just the beginning. The real story is everything after. The quiet moments, the ordinary days, the slow, steady process of building a life worth living." Lily thought about this. About the 23 days behind the ice machine when every moment had been about survival. About how different it felt now to have days that were just days. Not crises, not emergencies. Just life. "I think I'm going to like ordinary," she said. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." But ordinary didn't mean easy. 3 months after the adoption, Lily had her first real fight at school. It started with a boy named Tyler, who thought he was funny, who thought making jokes about homeless people was hilarious, who didn't know or didn't care that one of his classmates had slept behind an ice machine for 23 days. "Hey, Lily," he called across the playground. "Is it true you used to eat out of garbage cans?" The words hit her like the bat had. Sudden, sharp, unexpected. She could feel the other kids turning to look, could feel the heat rising in her cheeks, the old familiar urge to shrink, to disappear, to become invisible again. But she wasn't that girl anymore. "Yeah," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I did. Because I didn't have anyone to take care of me. Because I was 5 years old and alone and doing whatever I had to do to survive." Tyler's smirk faltered. "You know what else I did?" Lily stepped closer, and something in her eyes made him step back. "I threw myself in front of a baseball bat to save a stranger. I took a beating for someone I didn't know. What have you ever done, Tyler, except make fun of people who had it harder than you?" The playground went silent. Tyler's face went red. He opened his mouth closed. It opened it again. Nothing came out. "That's what I thought," Lily said. She turned and walked away, heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Behind her, she could hear whispers, shuffling feet, the sound of Tyler's friends abandoning him. She didn't look back. Crow found her in her room that afternoon, sitting on the bed with Button staring at the wall. "Principal called," Crow said from the doorway. "Told me what happened." Lily tensed, waiting for the anger, for the disappointment, for the lecture about how she should have walked away, should have told a teacher, should have been the bigger person. "I'm proud of you," Crow said instead. Lily looked up. "What? That kid was a bully. He's been picking on other kids for months, but nobody ever stood up to him. Until you." Crow sat on the bed, taking Lily's hand. "You didn't hit him. You didn't curse at him. You just told the truth, your truth. And that's the bravest thing anyone can do." "I was scared," Lily admitted. "After. My hands were shaking." "That's because you cared. About what he said about what the other kids thought. Courage isn't the absence of fear, remember. It's doing the scary thing anyway. You remembered. Lily looked at Button, at the familiar worn fabric, the one remaining arm. Sometimes I still feel like her. Like the girl behind the ice machine. Like I'm just pretending to be normal. You're not pretending. Crow squeezed her hand. You're growing. And growing means you get to be more than one thing. You can be the girl who survived and the girl who thrived. You can be scared and brave at the same time. That doesn't make sense. None of the important things do. Spring came slowly that year. Lily turned 7 in March, a birthday party that involved way too many motorcycles and a cake shaped like Tank that the real Tank tried very hard to eat. Grizzly gave her a helmet, bright purple, with flames on the sides, and promised that when she was old enough, he'd teach her to ride. Not on yours, Crow said firmly. That thing is a death trap. It's a classic. It's a death trap that happens to be classic. Lily watched them bicker with a smile. This was her family now. These two stubborn, tattooed, leather-wearing people who had chosen her when no one else would. She'd started calling Crow Mom 2 months ago, just once at first to see how it felt. Now she couldn't imagine calling her anything else. Grizzly, she still called Grizzly. He'd told her he didn't need a title. I know what I am to you, he'd said. Names don't change that. But secretly in her head, she'd started thinking of him as Grandpa. The kind of grandpa who had tattoos and rode motorcycles and looked like Santa's biker cousin. You're thinking too hard, Grizzly said, catching her expression. I can see the smoke coming out of your ears. I'm thinking about how weird my life is. Weird good or weird bad? Weird good. Definitely weird good. He ruffled her hair with his big, scarred hand. Get used to it, little one. Weird good is kind of our specialty. The letter arrived in June. Lily was the one who found it in the mailbox, buried between bills and junk mail. A plain white envelope with a return address she didn't recognize, and her name printed carefully on the front. Mom, she called, carrying it inside. What's this? Crow took the envelope, studied it for a moment, and went very still. What? Lily felt fear creep up her spine. What is it? It's from the prison. Crow's voice was flat. From Dean Dobson. The name hit Lily like ice water. She hadn't thought about Dean in months, hadn't let herself think about him, about any of them. What does he want? I don't know. Crow held up the envelope. We don't have to open it. We can throw it away right now, pretend it never came. Lily stared at the envelope, at her name in that careful handwriting. No, she said slowly. I want to know. Are you sure? He doesn't get to scare me anymore. He's in a box. I'm not. Crow studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. She slit the envelope with a kitchen knife and pulled out a single sheet of paper. You want me to read it? Yes. Crow unfolded the letter, eyes scanning the words. Her expression shifted surprise, then something harder to read, then something that might have been sadness. What does it say? Crow looked at her. He's apologizing. Lily blinked. What? He says he's been in therapy, something the prison requires, and he's been thinking about that night, about what he did. Crow's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking slightly. He says he knows he can never make it right, that he'll spend the rest of his life knowing what he did to you, but he wanted you to know that he's sorry, really sorry, and that seeing you stand up in that parking lot the way you looked at him when he was on his knees changed something in him, and Lily didn't know what to feel. She'd expected, she didn't know. Threats, maybe, justifications. Not this. Is he lying? I don't know. Crow set the letter down. People can change, some of them anyway, Prison does that sometimes makes people look at themselves in ways they never had to before. But he hit me. He did. With a bat. He did that too. And now he's sorry. Crow crouched down, meeting her eyes. Here's what I know, sweetheart. That man hurt you. Nothing changes that. No apology makes that okay. But you don't have to carry him anymore. Whether he's sorry or not, whether he's changed or not, that's his journey. Yours is about you, about who you're becoming, about the life you're building. Lily looked at the letter on the counter, at the words she couldn't quite bring herself to read. What should I do? Whatever feels right to you. Lily thought for a long time. About the bat. About the blood. About the way Dean's eyes had looked when he realized what he'd done, that flash of horror before the anger took over. I don't forgive him, she said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That's okay. But I don't want to hate him either. Hating takes too much energy. She looked at Crow. Can we put the letter somewhere? Not throw it away, but not keep it where I have to see it. We can do that. Crow found an old shoebox, the kind that used to hold boots, and placed the letter inside. They put the box on the highest shelf in the closet, out of sight, but not forgotten. There, Crow said. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready, it'll be there. Lily nodded, feeling something unknot in her chest. He didn't get to take up space in her head anymore. She was done giving him that power. Summer burned hot and bright. Lily spent her days at the clubhouse helping with whatever needed doing, learning the names of engine parts she couldn't pronounce. Tank came everywhere with her, a golden shadow that had grown even bigger in the past year. She had friends now. Real ones. Kids from school who came over for sleepovers, who didn't care about the video or the fame, who just wanted someone to play with. And she had family. Not just Crow and Grizzly, but the whole sprawling mess of bikers who had claimed her that frozen night. They remembered her birthday. They showed up for school plays. They made a point of stopping by just to say hello. You know what's funny? She told Tank one afternoon, lying in the grass of Crow's backyard. I used to think family was the people who had to take care of you. The ones who didn't have a choice. Tank's tail thumped against the ground. But it's not. Family is the people who choose you, who see you at your worst and stay anyway. She scratched behind his ears. Like you. You chose me on the first day, and you haven't left since. Tank licked her face in response. Gross. But she was smiling. The adoption anniversary came and went. Then the second anniversary of that frozen night. The statue still stood at the truck stop, a little weathered now, surrounded by flowers that people left throughout the year. Lily visited it sometimes. Not as often as before, but enough. It was strange looking at herself in bronze, at the girl she used to be. You were so small, she murmured, tracing the statue's face. So scared. She wasn't that small anymore. 8 years old now, taller, stronger, starting to look less like a stray and more like a kid. The kind of kid who belonged somewhere. But she remembered. She would always remember. Lily, Grizzly's voice called from across the parking lot. You ready? She turned. He stood beside his motorcycle. A newer one, now safer, with a sidecar attached where she could ride. Crow waited in her truck, nearby Tank's head hanging out the back window. Her family, her real family. Coming? She called back. But before she left, she did what she always did. She touched the statue's hand, the one that clutched the bronze doll. Thank you, she whispered, for being brave when I couldn't imagine anything else. Then she ran toward the people who loved her, the dog who adored her, the life she'd never dared to dream about. She was Lily, daughter of Crow, granddaughter of Grizzly. member of the Angels family. And this was only the beginning. 3 years changed everything and nothing. Lily stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the collar of her vest. The Angels family patch had faded from bright to soft, the leather worn in places from years of being pulled on and off, shrugged through homework and hugs and everything in between. She was 8 now. Tall for her age, with Crow's steadiness in her eyes, and something else, something that belonged only to her. A quiet strength that people noticed without being able to name. "You almost ready?" Crow's voice floated down the hall. Almost. Today was the 3rd anniversary. The big one. The one the club had been planning for months, though they wouldn't tell her exactly what they had in mind. "It's a surprise," Grizzly had said, eyes twinkling. "And before you ask, no, I'm not telling you. I've survived 40 years of interrogations. You don't scare me. I could tell Tank to stop loving you. You could try. That dog has no loyalty whatsoever." Tank, now enormous and graying around the muzzle, had thumped his tail at the sound of his name, proving Grizzly's point entirely. Lily touched the vest one more time, then grabbed Button from her pillow. The doll was more patch than fabric now, Crow having sewn her back together at least a dozen times. But she still had one arm, still had her faded eyes, still meant everything. "Let's go see what they're up to," Lily whispered. The convoy was waiting. Not 500 this time. That had been a once-in-a-lifetime gathering, but close to 100 lined up along the road outside Crow's house like a chrome and leather honor guard. Lily stopped on the porch, breath catching. "What is this?" Viper stepped forward, looking older than she remembered, but moving with the same deliberate authority. "This is your escort, Lily. Every one of these folks requested to ride today. Most of them were there that first night. Some of them have come from 3 states away. But why? Because you're not just a little girl who did something brave once." Viper crouched down the way he always had. "You're proof that one person, one small, scared, freezing person can change the world. And we don't forget that. Not ever." Lily looked at the faces watching her. She recognized most of them now. Marcus, who had taught her to change a tire. Elena, who made tamales every Christmas and always saved the first one for her. Big Danny, who looked terrifying but cried at every Pixar movie. Her family. Her people. "Where are we going?" she asked. Viper stood extending his hand. "Somewhere you need to see." The ride took almost 2 hours. Lily sat in the sidecar of Grizzly's motorcycle helmet, secure button, tucked inside her jacket where the wind couldn't reach. She'd learned to love this, the rumble of the engine, the blur of the world rushing past the sense of moving through space with people who would die for her if they had to. She hoped they never had to, but she knew they would. The landscape changed as they drove. Familiar roads gave way to unfamiliar ones. Small towns she'd never seen, highways that stretched toward a horizon she couldn't identify. "You okay back there?" Grizzly called over his shoulder. "Yeah, just wondering where we're going." "Almost there. Trust me." She did. Completely. The convoy slowed as they approached a small town that looked like every other small town in Tennessee. A main street, a church, a grocery store, people stopping to stare as the wall of motorcycles rolled past. But then Lily saw the sign. Harmony House, Shelter for Homeless Youth, sponsored by the Lily Foundation. Her heart stopped. "What?" She couldn't finish the sentence. The convoy pulled into a parking lot that hadn't existed 3 years ago. Beyond it stood a building new clean with wide windows and a playground visible around the side. Kids were pressed against the glass, watching the motorcycles with expressions Lily recognized. Wonder, hope, a little bit of fear, expressions she'd worn herself once. Grizzly killed the engine and helped her out of the sidecar. Her legs were shaking. "What is this?" Crow appeared beside her, taking her hand. "This is what happened with the money, sweetheart. All of it. The GoFundMe, the donations, everything people gave after they saw the video. I thought that was for my future." "It is." Crow squeezed her hand. "Just not the way you thought. You said once that you didn't need the money, that you just wanted more of what we'd given you. Remember?" Lily nodded, not trusting her voice. "Well, someone was listening. The club took that money and built something. Not just a building, a program. Shelter, food, counseling, education. Everything you didn't have when you were behind that ice machine. For kids like me. For kids exactly like you." Lily stared at the building, at the children watching through the windows. Some of them were her age. Some were younger. One little boy, maybe 4, had his face pressed so hard against the glass, it was leaving smudges. "How many?" she managed. 32 right now." Viper moved to stand beside them. "But we're expanding. 3 more locations planned across the state. All of them named after you." "I didn't ask for this." "That's why it matters." Viper's voice was gruff. "Anyone can demand their name on a building. You earned it by being willing to give everything you had for someone else." A door opened, and a woman stepped out. Young professional with kind eyes and a clipboard that she immediately set aside. "You must be Lily." She extended her hand. "I'm Sarah. I run this place, and I've been looking forward to meeting you for a very long time." Lily shook her hand, still struggling to process. Can I go inside? That's why we're here." The children gathered in the main room, a space that felt nothing like the institutions Lily had feared as a child. It was warm, colorful, filled with books and toys and soft places to sit. 32 faces turned toward her. "Everyone," Sarah announced, "this is Lily, the one this place is named after." Silence. Then a small hand went up. "Are you really the girl from the video?" A boy, maybe 6. "The one who saved Santa?" Lily felt her cheeks flush. "He's not actually Santa. But yeah, that was me." "Whoa." The boy's eyes went wide. "You're like... famous, I guess." What was it like? A girl this time older, with the hard eyes Lily remembered seeing in her own mirror. Being out there alone. The question cut deeper than the others. Lily looked at the girl, really looked at her, and saw herself. The walls up, the fear masquerading as toughness, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would see through the act. "It was the worst thing that ever happened to me," Lily said honestly. "Every night I thought I might not wake up. Every day I had to figure out how to survive another 24 hours. The room went quiet. But then something changed. Someone saw me. Not just looked at me, saw me, and that was the beginning of everything good. She pulled button from her jacket, holding up the worn, one-armed doll. This is all I had for 23 days. This doll and the clothes on my back. And I would have given her up to save a stranger because I thought maybe if I did one good thing, something good might happen to me." The kids were leaning forward now, drawn in by her words. "It did. Not because of magic or luck. Because of people. People who decided I was worth fighting for. People who showed up when no one else would." She looked at Grizzly, at Crow, at the bikers filing in through the door. People like them. The girl with the hard eyes raised her hand. "But how did you know they wouldn't hurt you? Adults always hurt us." Lily felt the weight of the question. Felt the ghosts of every bruise, every broken promise, every time the world had proven that trust was dangerous. "I didn't know," she admitted. "I was terrified. When the bikers showed up, 500 of them, I thought maybe I'd made a huge mistake. Maybe I'd traded one kind of scary for another. So what happened? I watched. I paid attention. I looked for the small things, the way they talked to each other, the way they treated people who couldn't do anything for them, the way they kept their promises even when it was hard. She knelt down, putting herself at eye level with the younger kids. Some adults will hurt you. That's real, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't. But some adults will save you. And the only way to find them is to give yourself a chance to be found. What if we can't tell the difference? Then you trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. But if something feels right, even just a little bit, even if it's scary, maybe it's worth trying. She looked around the room at all these small, wounded, hoping faces. That's what I did that night. I saw a man with a white beard who looked like he might be kind. I was wrong about the Santa part, but I was right about the kind part, and that's what saved me. Sarah stepped forward, something shining in her eyes. We had one more thing planned, if Lily's okay with it. Lily looked at Crow, who nodded. Okay. Sarah led them to a room in the back, smaller, quieter, with a large covered object in the center. We commissioned this from a local artist, Sarah explained. Someone who was homeless herself once. Someone who understood what your story means. She pulled away the cover. Lily's breath left her body. It was a painting. Massive, covering almost the entire wall. And in it she saw herself, not the bronze statue version, polished and permanent, but something rawer. A little girl in a summer dress, barefoot in the snow, throwing herself over a fallen biker. But the artist had added something. Wings. They rose from Lily's back in the painting, not the feathery kind from storybooks, but something fiercer. Dark and strong and tattered at the edges, like they'd been through storms, but survived. She's an angel, the 4-year-old boy whispered. A real one. Lily stared at the painting, at this version of herself she'd never imagined. She thought about all the times she'd felt small, weak, invisible, all the times she'd wondered if she mattered at all. And here was someone who saw her differently, who saw strength where she'd only seen survival. It's too much, she whispered. No. Grizzly's hand landed on her shoulder, heavy and warm. It's exactly right. The celebration continued into the afternoon. Bikers played with children in the yard. Crow helped in the kitchen, somehow producing sandwiches for 60 people from ingredients no one had seen her bring. Tank, who had been smuggled in despite the no pets rule, was being overwhelmed with attention from a dozen small hands, his tail wagging so hard he kept knocking kids over. Lily sat on the edge of the playground, watching it all. The girl with the hard eyes, her name was Mira, she'd learned, sat beside her. You really lived behind an ice machine? Mira asked. For 23 days. I've got you beat. 3 months behind a laundromat. Lily looked at her. That's not a competition anyone wins. Mira almost smiled. Yeah, I know. They sat in silence for a moment, watching Tank get his ears scratched by 4 kids simultaneously. You think I could have what you have? Mira's voice was smaller now. Younger. A family, I mean. People who actually want me. Lily thought about the question. About how impossible it had seemed 3 years ago, the idea that anyone would choose her. Honestly, I don't know. Every story's different. She turned to face Mira. But I know this. You're here. In a place that exists because of what happened to me. And if I could find people who saw me, really saw me, then maybe you can too. That's not very comforting. It's not supposed to be comforting. It's supposed to be true. Lily pulled Button from her jacket, holding the worn doll in her lap. You know what I've learned? Comfort comes and goes, but truth lasts. And the truth is that you're 12 years old, and you've survived things that would break most adults. That means something. That matters." Mira stared at her for a long moment. "You're weird," she said finally. "Yeah, I know." Another silence. Then quietly, "Weird's not bad." "No, it's really not." Viper found her as the sun was starting to set. "There's one more thing," he said. "If you're up for it." Lily was tired, the good kind of tired, the kind that came from feeling things deeply, but she nodded. "Always." He led her away from the celebration past the playground to a small garden area that had been planted in the back. In the center stood a bench, and on the bench sat a woman Lily didn't recognize. Except she did. The gray hair was new. So were the lines around her eyes, the tired slump of her shoulders. But the face, the shape of it, the way her mouth curved, when she wasn't sure what to say. "Mrs. Patterson," Lily breathed. The woman looked up. Her eyes, tired, sad, hopeful, found Lily's face and filled with tears. "Oh, sweetheart, look at you." Mrs. Patterson from 4B, the neighbor who'd knocked on the door when Mama was screaming, the one voice that had made everything stop, even if only for a moment. Lily hadn't thought about her in years, had assumed she'd been swallowed by the same chaos that had taken everything else from that old life. "How?" she managed. "The video." Mrs. Patterson's voice was rough. "I saw it on the news about a year after it happened. Saw your face, and I knew. I knew it was you, the little girl from 4B, the one who used to peek at me through the crack in her door." She stood slowly, carefully, like she was afraid Lily might run. "I tried to find you back then. After your mama. After. But by the time I got to the apartment, you were gone. The police said they'd look, but..." She shook her head. "I never stopped wondering, never stopped hoping you were okay somewhere." Lily felt something crack open in her chest. All those years behind the ice machine, she'd thought nobody was looking. Nobody cared. She'd been invisible, forgettable, disposable. But someone had been wondering. Someone had been hoping. "You knocked on our door once," Lily said, "when Mama was yelling." "I remember." She stopped. Because of you. Just for that night, but she stopped. Lily's voice broke. "I never got to thank you." Mrs. Patterson closed the distance between them and wrapped her arms around Lily, gentle but firm, the way you hold something precious. "You don't have to thank me, sweetheart. I just needed to know you were okay. That's all I ever needed." Lily held on crying now, years of unshed tears finally finding their way out. She cried for the little girl behind the ice machine, for the mother who'd lost herself to needles, for every moment she'd felt alone, and wasn't even when she didn't know it. "I'm okay," she whispered into Mrs. Patterson's shoulder. "I'm really okay." "I can see that." Mrs. Patterson pulled back, holding Lily's face in her hands. "You've got a family now. A real one. I can see it in your eyes." "How? Because you look like someone who belongs somewhere. That changes everything about a person." The ride home was quiet. Lily sat in the sidecar watching the stars come out one by one, button pressed against her heart. Tank had fallen asleep in Crow's truck, exhausted from a day of being adored. The convoy spread out behind them, chrome glinting in the fading light. "You okay?" Grizzly called back. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what? About how many people it took to save me?" She shifted in her seat, looking back at the line of motorcycles. "Not just you or Crow or the club, Mrs. Patterson, the trucker who filmed the video, the nurses at the hospital, even the kids at Harmony House, they're part of it now, too. That's how it works, little one. Nobody makes it alone. We just pass the torch from hand to hand, trying not to let it go out." Lily thought about this, about torches and hands, and the way light moves from person to person, flame to flame. "I want to be a torch," she said. "What do you mean?" "I want to be the person who passes it on, who sees the next kid behind the ice machine and does something about it." She clutched Button tighter. "That's what this was always about, wasn't it? Not just saving me, saving all the ones who come after." Grizzly was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "You know, I've been writing for 40 years. Seen a lot of things done, a lot of things. Some of them good, some of them not so good. But in all that time, I never met anyone quite like you. Like me, how someone who understands, really understands what it means to have power." He glanced back at her. "Most people think power is about being strong, being tough, making people afraid of you. But that's not power. That's just noise." "Then what is power?" "Power is what you did at that gas station. Power is looking at someone in pain and deciding their pain matters more than your safety. Power is taking the hit when you don't have to, just because it's the right thing to do." He turned back to the road, but his voice carried clearly over the engine. "You're 8 years old, Lily, and you've got more power than men 3 times your age. Don't ever let anyone take that from you." They pulled into Crow's driveway as the moon rose. The house was dark, except for the porch light left on, like it always was, a beacon, Crow called it. Something to come home to. Lily climbed out of the sidecar, legs stiff from the long ride. Tank stumbled out of the truck, immediately pressing against her tail, wagging sleepily. "Bed," Crow said firmly. "Both of you. It's been a long day." But Lily hesitated. "Can I have a minute outside?" Crow studied her face, then nodded. "Take all the time you need. We'll be inside." Lily walked to the tire swing, the one that had been her first sign that this place was different. She sat in it, letting her feet drag in the dirt button in her lap. Tank settled at her feet. The night was cool and clear, stars scattered across the sky, like someone had thrown diamonds at the dark. "Hey, Mama," she said quietly. She hadn't talked to her mother in a long time. Hadn't known what to say, or how to say it, or whether it mattered. But tonight felt different. "I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you're anywhere at all. But I wanted you to know I'm okay. I'm really, really okay." Tank's ear twitched. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. "I have a family now. A mom who tucks me in and makes pancakes and yells at me to do my homework. A grandpa who looks like Santa and teaches me about motorcycles. A dog who thinks he's a lapdog even though he weighs 100 pounds. She felt tears prick her eyes, but didn't fight them. "I know you were sick. I know the needles were bigger than you. I used to be angry about that, really angry, but I'm not anymore. I think you did the best you could with what you had. And even though your best wasn't enough to keep me safe, it was enough to make me brave." She touched Button's worn face. "You gave me this. You gave me stories and imagination, and the ability to believe in things I couldn't see. That's what saved me, Mama. Not the bikers, not the video you. You taught me that good things existed even when I couldn't find them, and that belief carried me through 23 days of cold until the good things finally showed up." She swallowed hard. "I forgive you. For everything. I forgive you, and I love you, and I hope wherever you are, you're not hurting anymore." The wind picked up, rustling through the trees, and for just a moment, Lily could have sworn she felt something brush against her cheek. She smiled. "Good night, Mama." The next morning brought something unexpected. Lily woke to the sound of voices, Crow's, Grizzly's, and one she didn't recognize. She threw on clothes and padded to the kitchen tank, following close behind. A woman sat at the table, official-looking with a folder in front of her and a badge on her lapel. "Ah, there she is." Crow's voice was warm but careful. "Lily, this is Detective Morrison. She's here about something important." Lily's stomach dropped. "Did something happen?" "Nothing bad." Detective Morrison smiled. "In fact, just the opposite. I'm here because we've finalized something that's been in the works for a while." She opened her folder, pulling out a document. The Dobson brothers were up for parole review. Based on their behavior and the nature of their crimes, the board decided to add additional time to all 3 sentences. They won't be eligible for release for at least another 15 years. Lily felt relief wash through her like warm water. But that's not all. Detective Morrison set down another document. The county has officially designated the warming stations built in your name as protected community resources. They can't be shut down or defunded without a full public referendum. Your legacy is permanent, Lily, written into law. Crow made a sound that might have been a sob, or might have been a laugh. Grizzly's hand found Lily's shoulder. "There's one more thing." Detective Morrison reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. "This is from the governor's office. I was asked to deliver it personally." She handed the box to Lily. Inside, nestled in blue velvet, was a medal. Gold with the state seal on one side and an inscription on the other, for extraordinary courage in the face of danger, awarded to Lily Patterson, Tennessee's youngest civilian hero. Lily stared at it. At her name, her real name, now legally changed when the adoption was finalized, engraved in gold. "They want to have a ceremony," Detective Morrison said, "at the state capitol. The governor himself will present it." Lily looked at Crow. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." Crow pulled her into a hug. "You just have to be yourself. That's always been enough." The ceremony happened 2 weeks later. Lily wore a dress, her first voluntarily, and carried Button in a small bag at her side. Crow had offered to leave the doll at home, but Lily refused. "She was there at the beginning," she said. "She should be here for this, too." The Capitol building was enormous, filled with people in suits and dresses, cameras flashing everywhere. Lily felt small again, the way she had behind the ice machine, the way she sometimes still felt in crowds. But then she looked at her family. Crow standing tall in her leather vest, looking like she'd fight every politician in the building if they tried anything. Grizzly white beard, freshly trimmed, dressed in something that wasn't denim for the first time in decades. Viper and a dozen club members, all in formal cuts, taking up an entire row of seats. Tank somehow allowed inside, sitting at Grizzly's feet, with an expression of noble patience. She wasn't alone. She would never be alone again. The governor called her name. Lily walked to the podium, legs shaking, Button's bag clutched against her chest. The medal was heavy in her hands, heavier than it looked, as if it carried the weight of everything that had led to this moment. "Thank you," she said, her voice echoing in the massive chamber. "I'm not really sure what to say." Laughter, gentle and encouraging. "I was 5 years old when everything changed. I was homeless and hungry and scared. I thought I was going to die behind an ice machine and nobody would even notice." The laughter faded. "But then I saw someone who needed help. An old man who looked like Santa trapped under his motorcycle with bad men about to hurt him. And I thought if I do one good thing before I die, maybe it'll mean something. Maybe someone will remember." She looked at Grizzly, at the tears running openly down his weathered face. "I didn't know it would be like this. I didn't know the video would go everywhere, or that 500 bikers would show up, or that I'd get a family and a home and everything I'd given up hoping for." She held up the medal. "This is beautiful. And I'm honored." But it's not really mine. It belongs to everyone who chose to see me when they didn't have to. Everyone who decided that a scared little girl behind a machine was worth saving." And she turned to face the audience directly. "There are kids out there right now who feel like I felt. Invisible. Forgotten. Worthless. And I need you to know something. Every one of them is worth exactly this much. Every one of them has something inside them that could change the world if someone would just give them a chance." Her voice grew stronger. "So this medal isn't an ending. It's a reminder. A reminder to look for the ones who are hiding, to stop when someone needs help, to be the person who shows up when showing up is hard." She stepped back from the podium. "Because that's what heroes do. They don't wear capes. They don't have superpowers. They just refuse to look away." The applause was deafening. They drove home as the sun set. Lily sat in the sidecar medal around her neck, Button in her lap, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. Crow and Grizzly rode beside her, the rest of the club spread out behind. "You did good today," Grizzly called over. "Thanks." "You know what comes next?" "What?" "Homework. Crow says you've got a book report due Monday." Lily groaned, but she was smiling. This was her life now. Medal ceremonies and homework, state capitals and bedtime stories, the extraordinary and the ordinary woven together into something that felt finally like home. As they pulled into the driveway, Tank barked from the back of Crow's truck, announcing their arrival to nobody in particular. Crow was already talking about dinner. Grizzly was complaining about his leg. Everything was normal. Everything was perfect. Lily climbed out of the sidecar and stood for a moment looking at the house that had become hers, at the porch light that was always on, at the tire swing where she'd whispered to her mother under the stars. She thought about the girl she'd been 3 years ago, the one who'd counted footsteps and learned to be invisible, the one who'd believed deep down that she wasn't worth saving. That girl was still inside her, would always be inside her, but she wasn't alone anymore. "You coming?" Crow called from the porch. Lily looked at her family, at the people who had chosen her, fought for her, loved her when loving her meant facing down baseball bats and courtrooms and all the broken pieces of a life that had never been kind. "Yeah," she said. "I'm coming." She walked toward the light. "And if you're still here, if you've ridden with us through the cold and the fear and the fire to this moment, then you know what Lily learned that night 3 years ago. You know what 500 motorcycles taught her, what a one-armed doll carried, what a white-bearded biker proved when he kept his promise. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear leather. Sometimes they're 5 years old with bare feet and nothing to lose. Sometimes they're you reading this wondering if one person can really make a difference. They can. Lily did. And so can you. All you have to do is refuse to look away. If this story moved something inside you, subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment and tell us where you're listening from tonight. Share Lily's story with someone who needs to hear it. Because somewhere out there right now, there's another child behind another machine. Another voice waiting to be heard. Another life waiting to be changed. Be the person who shows up. Be the family they never had. Be the reason they learn what Lily finally learned, that courage can be small and cold and 5 years old. And that love, real love, the kind that rides through snowstorms and faces down bullies and never stops fighting, always finds its way home.